What's up, everybody? J Heat Sports Media coming at y'all again with that fire as always. Spitting the hot topics and getting that sports conversation started. Talking about basketball, boxing, and football mostly. Time to pay tribute to the great Bill Russell. Let's get into it. First, I'd like to talk about Bill Russell, the man, as he would want folks to remember him, the basketball being secondary. Talking about the guy that was a humanitarian, a civil rights activist, cared about his fellow man, not just African Americans, but stood on the front lines to be an example for African Americans. A guy who wasn't appreciated, even though he was the greatest winner of all time in American team sports. Even at the time when he was at the height of his powers, the fans didn't show the support because his coach centered a team around an African American and had many African Americans on the team, a starting five of African Americans, which didn't go over so well in Boston at the time. Bill Russell didn't necessarily like the fans of Boston at first. It took some time for that to grow on him over the years when he finally got some respect. But early on, as we all know, that wasn't the case. The hockey team was more important, even though the basketball team was winning more. And Boston has its reputation for some racist issues out there to begin with. And we all know that. Even to this day, people talk about that from time to time. That being said, Bill Russell, we know he had feces thrown on the door of where he lived. He got all types of names said to him. People aggressively went at him based on the color of his skin. And through it all, he was able to hold his head high and set a standard of excellence on the court, but off the court, most importantly, walking with Dr. Martin Luther King, being there for Muhammad Ali, being a mentor and a role model for many of the civil rights leaders and people who wanted to make a difference. Bill Russell set that example for African Americans, but he cared about all humans, not just African Americans. And set an example that inspired even Barack Obama, as he said, that led him to the life he chose in politics. Obama talked about how Bill was a real big influence to him. Even Bill Clinton, he spoke about the friendship he had with Bill Russell and how he was appreciative to get to know him and to be able to call him a friend. When you got people like that respect you in such a manner, it just speaks volumes to the person you were past just sports. With that being said, you know what I do. I like to talk about sports, so let's get into it. All right, I'm going to say this one last time and one time only. Actually, I'll probably have to do this again sometime. Bill Russell is not just the greatest winner of all time in American team sports. He's not just the greatest winner as a basketball player. He is the GOAT, folks. I know it's a lofty standard to live up to. See, in basketball, as Bill Russell once joked about, but was serious too, it's always been about buckets. Scoring is the sexy thing. In all sports, they have altered the rules over time to promote scoring because that packs the seats. People love to see high-scoring games in all sports, especially basketball. But defense wins championships. Bill Russell set that legacy about defense winning championships, and he's the reason that the phrase is a phrase, if you ask me. Bill Russell's excellence on the court is more than just his team was loaded. Let's bust all the myths right now. They'll tell you, well, he played in a league with only 8 teams. Very true. He did have a time where he was playing most of his career that way. That being said, at that point in time, the best athletes were being allowed to play for the most part. You had some real good athletes in sports, especially as African Americans started coming more and more into the basketball league. And even with that aside, just think about if you had a league right now, if you took the 30 teams away and only had 8 teams, the amount of people that would not be able to make the league. Guys that are star players on teams now would be role players on other teams. That's the league Bill Russell played in, where guys couldn't even make the squad. He joked with Michael Jordan once saying, you know, guys like Steve Kerr and John Paxson that were critical to hitting those game-winning shots for you in games, you wouldn't have had them on your team playing in my league because they wouldn't have been good enough to make the league. And he has a point. So to me, the 8 teams is a testament that he was playing against Hall of Famers repeatedly, day in and day out, regular season and playoffs, and still dominated. Now let's talk about how his team was the most stacked team ever and he had all this talent on the team. Yes, they were a talented team. He had some Hall of Famers on his team that were Hall of Famers. A lot of that had to do with the fact they had Bill Russell on their team. Let's be real about it. The Boston Celtics did not win championships before he got there, and winning wasn't just a Boston Celtics thing for Bill Russell. You're talking about a guy that won 2 state championships in high school, the highest level of championship he could get in high school. He did it twice. Went to college. Back then, you didn't play your freshman year on the varsity team, so he didn't get to play that year. But his last 2 years of college, he won 50-plus games straight, basically undefeated 2 seasons, 2 national championships. Then went to the pros, to a team that hadn't won a championship yet, and won the title his first year in. Didn't win it the next year, but was in the title game, and then took that on to 8 straight chips. Talking about the guy that won 2 of his 11 chips in 13 years as a player coach. Do y'all know how hard that is? We'll never see that again. Coaching the game, subbing yourself in, and getting the job done while talking some smack and telling people you're going to win these games. 10-0 in Game 7s when everything was on the line. Bill not only always won, but he told you about it too. The famous game when they were playing against the Lakers, and the Lakers thought they were going to win Game 7 on their court, had the balloons up in the stands, and Bill felt bad for them because they had those balloons for no reason at all, because they was going against his Celtics. That's the type of bad mojo he was. And Bill Russell, his stats get overlooked. They say, well, he wasn't as skilled, but skill is on both ends of the floor. Bill Russell was doing a sky hook before Kareem. Let's not forget that. Before they had a specific name for it. He was dunking the ball when his coach thought it wasn't necessarily a good thing to do. It was a little too flashy, maybe risky. He could see that wasn't the case. Bill Russell, his field goal percentage was low. He wasn't the greatest jump shooter or free throw shooter, but he didn't need to be, nor did he really need to work on it much, because he understood early on that it was more than just winning league MVPs, which he had 5 of those. The same as the great Michael Jordan, 1 less than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. 5 MVPs, more than the great Wilt Chamberlain. He was the best player in the league during the regular season, not just the Finals MVP. The Finals MVP, which is named after him because of how great he was in the Finals. Go check out his Finals numbers. How about this Game 7 here for you? Let me know what you think about that. That's what you call a stellar performance. 40 boards, 30 points. You got to understand, Pat Riley had a phrase, no rebounds, no rings. Bill understood that early on. That was his skill. He controlled the boards better than anybody that's ever played the game outside of Wilt Chamberlain, and he pretty much controlled them as well as he did. And Wilt was a freak athlete. So was Bill, but Wilt even more so, being 2 or 3 inches taller, a little stronger, a little heavier. But Bill still got just about as many boards a game as Wilt. And by controlling the game, he controlled the pace. By controlling the board, he controlled the pace. He was the best passing big maybe of all time, right there with Wilt. Maybe the Joker now we could say is the better passer. But before the Joker came around, it was Bill Russell. He understood everything that was required to win, and that's what mattered. He controlled it with his blocks. They didn't record blocks back then. How do we know Bill Russell didn't record several triple-doubles, maybe close to averaging a triple-double some of them years with the amount of blocks this man probably got? This is a guy who, you got to think about it, was some of his blocks even considered steals? Because he developed the block where he didn't just send it into the stands. He said everybody thought that was the sexy thing to do, and we still do to this day. Get that out of here, as we'll tell somebody, and send the ball into the stands. Bill was like, that's a turnover. I'm giving it back to the other team. So he would control the block, grab it out the air, or direct it to one of his teammates. The skill it takes, the time of shot from a professional athlete, and then direct it to another teammate, or grab it out the air and start the fast break with an outlet pass, is not only phenomenal, but it's embarrassing to the other player who it happens to. Trust me, I've been in that situation before with a pro athlete who grabbed the ball out the air on a shot I thought nobody could get to and started the fast break. Pretty embarrassing. Bill used to do this on a regular basis to some of the best pros in the world. So his skills was on the defensive end. His skills was mental. His skills was his will to win, his heart, determination, his leadership. And he had them all in abundance. He's the greatest defender of all time, and it's not close. The gap between him and, say, Akeem Olajuwon, I'd say, is greater than the gap between Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain and, say, Kevin Durant and Kobe, guys like that, the greatest scorers of all time. They're a lot closer when it comes to scoring than Bill Russell and Akeem Olajuwon, who was maybe the next best defender of all time. Bill was phenomenal, and his winning was no mistake. It was planned and earned, and he is the greatest basketball player of all time. Forget what y'all think. And nobody will probably ever catch him, and that's okay. It's all right. But let's pay him his tribute and stop disrespecting this man as a basketball player. He wasn't just a guy out there benefiting because he was way bigger and more athletic than everybody. He was a world-class track athlete, but at 6'9", 6'10", there was other guys his height at the center position. He wasn't towering over everybody. That's another myth out there. Even Wilt Chamberlain at 7'1", there was 6'10" guys he was going up against. 3 inches isn't towering over. Bill Russell definitely wasn't towering over guys, but he was jumping over guys to get blocks. He was even jumping over guys without carrying the ball when guys would try to stop him on a fast break. There's a famous clip of him hurdling somebody without carrying the ball, which is tough to do back then because they don't let you palm the ball back then like they do now. You had to keep your hand above that peel. And he was able to hurdle somebody and not bring the ball up too high over his shoulder and keep it under the palm of his hand and keep the dribble legal and live. It's amazing. And hurdling a human being, the instincts when the guy stopped and tried to get into a defensive position to stop him from getting by, to just immediately respond and hurdle him is crazy. Bill Russell was phenomenal on the basketball court. I know he would say he was Bill Russell the man and basketball was just something he did, but as a tribute, I just wanted to pay homage that he was a great damn basketball player and the greatest in my opinion. Gonna miss seeing him giving the champion the MVP, Finals MVP trophy. Gonna miss hearing that smile on TV. Gonna miss just seeing him around. It's getting to the point where it seemed like Bill was gonna live forever, and then he left on his terms, it seems, which is a good thing. Now him and Wilt can battle up there, and he can show Kobe that It ain't just your time that was great. Let me show you what I can do, young buck. Holla at y'all next time. All right, that's all the time I got. Y'all know what it is. J Heat Sports Media. Remember to like, subscribe, or hit that bell. Let's talk. Let's go back and forth. I'm talking about boxing, basketball, and football mostly. Appreciate y'all sticking through this video. I know it was a long one, but Bill deserved it. He deserved more. But I'm going to cut it here. Holla.